Yes. So, as a recipient of Community Development Block Grant, CDBG, and Home Investment Partnership, or Home Entitlement Funding from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD, the City of Urbana, City of Champaign, and the Urbana Home Consortium, made up of the cities of Urbana and Champaign County through Regional Planning Commission, are required to submit a 5-year consolidated plan, which is to guide the utilization of the city's home and CDBG resources. Any project funded with CDBG and or home funds must be consistent with the goals, strategies, and objectives included in the consolidated plan. A draft of the Urbana Home Consortium consolidated plan and the City of Urbana Annual Action Plan and Housing Program Manual became available for public review and comment on Friday, March 20th, 2015, and will be available for 30 days, ending on April 20th, 2015. We're asking that the Community Development Commission review the CON Plan, Annual Action Plan, and Housing Manual over the next 30 days during the public review period and submit any comments to us, which we will incorporate into the plan, as we will be asking the Commission at the April 28, 2015 CDC meeting to forward the resolutions approving the plans to the Urbana City Council with a recommendation for approval. The plans and the manual will be going to the City Council meeting on May 4th, 2015 for approval. Hard copies of the documents are also available at the Urbana Free Library, City Clerk's Office, Community Development Services, and electronically on the city website. And I know several have asked for hard copies. If you would like a hard copy, we can also do that for you. On May 5th, 2015, Neighborhood Services staff will be asking the Champaign City Council for consideration of approval of the CON Plan and their annual action plan at the Champaign City Council meeting at 7 p.m. The Consolidated Plan, Annual Action Plan, and the Housing Program Manual are due to HUD by May 15th, 2015. Failure to submit the Consolidated Plan and Annual Action Plan to HUD by the May 15, 2015 deadline could result in a significant delay in accessing CDBG and home funds, which would create a financial burden for the city to advance funds for these programs. So, in addition to the public hearing this evening on the draft Consolidated Plan, Annual Action Plan, and Housing Manual, a public hearing on the draft Consolidated Plan and Champaign's Annual Action Plan will be held during the Champaign City Council on April 14th, 2015 at 7 p.m.
Sorry. Hi, my name is Robin Arbiter. I live at 1511 Hunter Street in Urbana. So I have not, I only made it through part of the rather lengthy document. I think it's your biggest one yet. But I had a couple of questions and comments. And if I'm wrong about something, I don't know if you can give me feedback now, but I may be misunderstanding some directions or trends here, but that are particularly concerning to me. So the most precariously housed populations in the consortium area, but also in my particular neighborhood, tend to be those at 30% or less of MFI. And it seems as if, well, you say this in the report, the least number of rental units that are considered affordable. Well, what you say is the least number of rental units that are considered affordable are those rented by individuals that make 30% of the consortium's median family income. So I'm guessing that that's not only are people in that falling into that income category fairly precariously housed, but part of that is because the housing stock is limited. Is that the case, or the rent, or the housing, or there aren't rents that are affordable to people in that category.
Yeah, I'd have to look at the specific page. If it's talking about like mismatched housing as part of the CHAS data, then that would be the housing that's available is unaffordable or they're cost burdened at that particular household income level.
Okay.
So you're probably right.
So this is around page 67. It is, I think, page 67. I guess the point I wanted to work toward was that certainly people on $724 a month, which is what SSI is, are, I believe, falling into that 30% of median family income for the area. And certainly anyone on township would fall into that category at $224 a month or whatever it is at this point. And I'm concerned because I see all these new projects coming and that have come in the last couple of years that seem to be catering to the higher end of what's considered low income. So they're catering to people maybe at 60% median family income. And I'm not seeing where the replacement in housing is being planned for people at the 30% level or below. So, for example, we're having this new development occur in a significant block on Learman. But is what's going to be built there that can accommodate people at 30% going to make up the deficit of what has disappeared in terms of housing affordable to people at 30%? And it's my perception that that is not going to happen through this particular project. But my bigger concern is it happening throughout the city at all? I mean, are we in fact replacing what we're losing, or do we have enough of a housing that's affordable for people at that level? So that's number one. And I know it's hard. It feels like it's hard for me to track or extract from what I'm reading right now. And then the other thing was that also on page 67, the report, the draft refers to a population loss around the consortium, and it said particularly relevant in Southeast Urbana, an area that lost 72 individuals between 2000 and 2013. And I'm curious about what that means, in part because Southeast Urbana is kind of, I don't know, I'm not sure what you view it as encompassing, but it could be, so I've heard people talk about from Philo Road, further north. So that could include the Silver Water area. It would maybe include also, Silver Water and everything adjacent to Learman. And that 72 individuals is an interesting number because, and I don't understand it because by my calculation, just on Learman, between Aspen Court and Urbana Townhomes, there were 93 units lost at Urbana Townhomes and 60% or 60 unoccupied at this time, generally because if they could be rented, I'm thinking they would be rented at Aspen Court. So that's actually a total of 150 units with more than 150 people in them absent from the neighborhood. So I feel like there's an exodus from the neighborhood, which has happened once before when the properties were going through foreclosures. And at that point, the census at Aspen Court dropped really low. And I haven't seen, as a resident there, it look as barren and unoccupied since. And now it looks that way again. So there's an exodus of people. And I can't say with any degree of accuracy where people are going, but I do know of two of my acquaintances in the neighborhood having given up their vouchers because the conditions and stresses there are so high, and the quality of life is so poor, that one person is now in a nursing home and the other moved into a fairly unstable family situation, giving up really what should have been tickets to stable housing, just simply because they couldn't afford they couldn't really they couldn't stay where they were, and they didn't feel they could find adequate replacement housing, even with their vouchers. So I'm just concerned about the number of, I guess I'd like to hear more about what that number 72 individuals meant, and whether that is referring to the same kind of exodus that we've seen in the Learman neighborhood. The other thing, I guess my third comment, and I think I'll review this again more carefully and maybe submit something in writing or ask other people in the Learman Neighborhood Action Committee to do that. But I went to the presentation by Herman and Kittle Properties last night, and they've been effectively selected and by the city and the county, and I don't know how much of what they're proposing is going to be actually negotiable. How much the tenants will be able, or city staff or anyone will be able to influence in the direction of the needs of the neighborhood, the decisions they ultimately make. But more obviously than the rental part of the property, not rental, more than the apartments in that neighborhood are unstable. There's all that housing from, which I think you referred to last night, Kelly, but all the housing on Austin and Lenore. There are a lot of houses that have transitioned from Learman to the east, that have transitioned from owner-occupied to rental properties, and some of it's been turned over really frequently, and some of it's been used very hard, and just driving through the neighborhood, you can see the deterioration of some of the housing conditions. The question is, in the longer term, then also how can we secure that rental and the rental experience, decent rental housing stock in the neighborhood, and also secure conditions for homeowners, owner-occupied homes there, because the homeowners are, of course, extremely concerned about the way their neighbors' conditions affect their own. And I have brought up in a previous part of this process the possibility of looking at a community land trust. And I just wanted to drop that into this hearing, because I'm hoping that maybe a year from now we might be in a position where, if people think it's warranted, residents and perhaps some people from the city would be talking about a community land trust as a possible model for retaining the affordability of the neighborhood, and maybe offering homeownership opportunities to lower income residents who want to live in this part of the neighborhood, and just kind of a second wave of action to take beyond this development, which is coming, and which will offer, I think that the development will offer some stability that is needed. Whether it will accommodate the neighbors who are there right now, I'm less certain of, and hope to become more certain of as time goes by. We'll see how that works out. So, thank you for listening.
Thanks for your comments. And I took some notes, but because you have a lot to say and it's very specific, I think it would be helpful if you would submit that in writing. Give us more to work with and make sure that we capture all that you've said.
Okay.
So thank you, and thanks for the detail of that. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I guess there are no other comments for the public hearing section of our meeting this evening. So now I declare the public hearing closed. And so Kelly's going to be collecting comments, written and verbal, until the 20th of April. So you have time to jot those down and submit those. Thank you, Robin. Public hearing is closed, and so now I want to turn to the regular meeting of the City of Urbana Community Development Commission. Do we think we need to have majority vote to have me as chair tonight?
Maybe we should go ahead and do that?
Yeah, the bylaws say that. So do you want to just call for votes on that?
I can do that.
Okay.
Or if one of the commissioners wants to make a motion, and then somebody gets
I
like,
move that we have Ann chair the committee for this evening.
Is there a
I
second?
second the motion.
Thank you. I think you have to call the vote.
I have to call for a vote?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. You want me to individually by name or just all those in favor? Signify by saying aye.
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 Any nays? Okay.
Okay. So I'd like to call, thank you. So I'd like to call the meeting to order. Do you want to take roll?
I can do that.
Thank you, Kelly.
Sure. Let's see. Fred Cobb. Brian Cunningham.
Present.
Lauren Carplus. Janice Bankston.
Here.
Ann Heinz Silvis.
Here.
Chris Diana.
Here.
Jerry Moreland.
Here.
Lisa Beth Searing. Here. We have quorum.
Thank you, Kelly. The first item on our agenda is approval of the minutes from Tuesday, January 22nd. You received those in the packet, so I'll entertain a motion for approval.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes from last meeting.
Thank you, Brian. Is there a second?
Second.
Chris seconds. Is there discussion, corrections? None? So let's call the vote for approval of the minutes from January 27th. All in favor of approving as written, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The minutes are approved. Now we go into petitions and communications, so I'd like to ask anyone in our audience if they have anything they'd like to say to the commission as part of our regular agenda. No? Okay, thank you. And then audience participation is the written, or is that, did I get it
Actually,
reversed?
the written is the petitions and communications. The audience participation is the verbal,
Okay, so,
oral. It's okay.
all right, so I switched them. So no audience participation. What about petitions and communications? Was anything received in written or email?
No.
No, okay. So the next item is the staff report. Kelly, do you want to lead us through the staff report?
I'll do that. You have your copy, and basically I'll go through a few things. We received a couple of letters from HUD. One was our supportive housing program, Homeless Families in Transition project was approved for funding. And then the other letter we received was for our 2015-2016 allocations for CDBG and home. And then you can see all the different activities that staff did together, and the very back lists the meetings that we've attended, and I commented that staff has been working diligently on the consolidated plan and annual action plan and the housing program manual. Any comments or anything or questions? Oh, I should make, now that I think about it, make an announcement. Under other, we have on the first page the Blight Reduction Program grant application was submitted to IDA. On Friday, March 20th, we received notice from IDA that our application was approved. And as a result, they gave us much more funding than what we asked for. So they gave us $525,000 for, and it's to help with blighted, vacant properties demolishing, rehabbing, redevelopment, and all of our properties we listed were eligible. So, and kudos to our interns. They were planning interns were extremely helpful, and they wrote this and they got all the research and they did a really good job. So we're proud. We mentioned it to council last night and everybody clapped for it. So yeah,
Good work.
Yeah, so it was great news.
And thanks for hosting the interns. That's what makes it possible, so.
Yes, well, we're extremely grateful to the planning division for allowing us to use them for different things. So
Great. Thanks for sharing that, Kelly. Any comments or questions about the staff report?
I have a question.
Yes.
How are those sites selected for the blight reduction program?
we worked with Building Safety Division, and they keep a list of problem properties that are blighted, vacant, within targeted areas in the city, and so that's where we got the addresses from them. Some of them the city owns, some are just vacant already, and then some are, I think, owned by others. So
So Kelly, there's a definition for blight, right? that you guys
yes.
use?
Mhm. My head, I don't remember what that is, but yes, there is a definition.
I know it's
and
pretty
it's and this was from Illinois Housing Development Authority. It's hardest hit funds. They set this program up like last September. They announced the program, and applications would be available, and it was due in December. So
Any other questions for Kelly? Okay, next item on the agenda is old business, and under old business, we have the Community Development Commission bylaws. We had a discussion about those bylaws at the last meeting, and what you have in your packet were the changes as a result of our discussion on January 27th. So, are there comments or changes to this version of our bylaws, or do you want to accept them? I think we have to approve them.
I think that they were approved in January.
Okay.
But this is the final printed with the corrections.
Okay,
So
so this is
more
the
of-
approved version.
Yes, this is the approved with the corrections.
Okay.
So this is, just to let you know that, yes, the corrections
Okay.
have been made, and this is your
Okay.
copies.
All right, thank you.
Mhm.
Looks good. Okay, that brings us to new business, and we have several items under new business. And I'll ask Kelly if she wants to take those individually as they're listed in the agenda, or take them as a group. How do you want to proceed?
So I'll let Jen talk about us, and I'll probably do these all together, or at least the first two.
Yeah, we could definitely do the first two together if you'd like. I mean, I'll be talking about them at the same time, so however you want to vote on them, I'm okay with that. So Habitat for Humanity has submitted a Community Housing Development Organization project application to build 5 homes. 3 of the proposed builds are in Champaign, and 2 are in Urbana, and they're listed on page 2. I should mention that one of the project addresses will actually be a rehab. So I think it's a house that was pretty much gutted on the inside, so they're going in, rehabbing it up to code, and they're selling it to a buyer. And the buyers, there's sales contracts for all the projects. The environmental reviews have been completed for all the projects, courtesy of Habitat. We, as the lead entity, still have to sign off on them, but that's actually a huge relief, because with all the new, I don't know if I've actually brought that up much at Community Development Commission. Have I ever discussed environmental reviews? Probably not. Okay. So before we ever initiate a home or CDBG funded project, we have to go through these steps to meet certain EPA guidelines for making sure that the proposed project isn't going to adversely impact the environment. And so we do that with a tiered process. Tier 1 would be, so for the Choto projects, we know we're going to spend this money. It's going to go to the Chotos. It'll be new construction. It's just a matter of when and where. So we'll do kind of an initial a cursory environmental review, and we send that off to HUD whenever we initially get our grant money. And then when we identify the site addresses for the actual projects, that's when we do what they call a tier 2. We just follow up with all of these site-specific evaluations, and that's a lot of work. So it's calculating the amount of noise that's caused by traffic in the surrounding area. Are there wetlands present? Is it on a floodplain? Are there any historic factors that need to be taken into account? So we have to email the Illinois Housing Preservation, Historic Preservation Agency. So it's a lot of consulting. We even have to contact the local airports, make sure they're not making too much noise by this house. It's crazy. And so HUD came out with quite a more involved process on how this is supposed to work. And so we're trying to play catch up with a lot of that stuff. But Habitat has been very generous in doing the work themselves. Sheila Dodd previously worked for the city of Champaign, so she's really familiar with the process and was able to get on board with that. So not that that matters to you or it was not on your radar, but now it's out there. I think I would probably mention that more to council because it had come up before. And then the way that the funding has been proposed, they requested $150,000. We only have $118,274 available. A little bit of that, I think about 5,000 is fiscal year 13-14 carryover, and the remainder, 113, is from the current fiscal year, 14-15. And so Urbana is proposing to foot the balance, if you will, for an amount of $31,724 and change. And then that would assist with funding about 50% of each build that's proposed in Urbana. But they would still be Chodo projects, essentially. Yeah, they already have sales contracts and buyers who are excited. So this will obviously help with our commitments. We're always looking to have enough commitments this time of year. And Habitat's still certified. They meet all the requirements to be certified as a Chodo, so there are no concerns there. I think that's the gist of it. They'll start construction on all the units probably by the fall. Yeah, construction will begin on all of the proposed sites. So I can take any questions if there are any.
I had a question at the end when you talk about programmatic impacts. When you talk about the 31,000 from the home entitlement funds will reduce the number of down payment projects that will be completed as part of 2014-15. How much would that impact that?
Well, I'd originally proposed to do $10,000 grants, so that would be 3 projects. We're actually, so the down payment amendment that CDC approved, I think it was 2 months ago. Now, I still haven't taken it to council. The home program has a whole lot of more requirements for underwriting, and so I'm having to revisit a lot of our policies and procedures for the program and make sure that that's really shored up before I roll out that program. So I'm still planning on proceeding with the amendment, but it's not approved by council. So you're right, I kind of am putting the cart before the horse with that statement there. And I'm actually looking at reducing the per grant amount, just because a lot of different issues. So we're looking to do more projects, help more people, because that shows evidence of having a greater impact, essentially, which helps how HUD reviews our program and that whole thing. So essentially, if I did like a $5,000 grant, it would be 6 projects or whatever. It just depends on how the program's being structured. So I will definitely let you know. I know you approved the funding amount and how I'd proposed it at the $10,000 amount before. So if I'm definitely open to bringing it back if you all want to do that, or I could take it to council, I think in 2 weeks, and just let them know that we're still working out the underwriting. I don't know. It's been really difficult. And we're not the only consortia that's having a problem with coming up with underwriting that will satisfy HUD. And HUD is not giving us great guidance either on what they're really looking for. So everybody's just shooting in the dark, hoping that they come up with underwriting that will make HUD happy, but HUD won't tell us what will make them happy. So it's like everybody's nervous. They're a little gun shy with their down payment programs because they don't want to get in a bind a year later after they've done 10, 20 projects and realize, oh, we've been calculating this or that wrong. So That's kind of where that program is at. So I can't really tell you exactly how much that would detract from the program because I don't even have a grant amount at this moment. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Good question.
Couple of questions related to page 37 of the, I guess that's actually the second section there.
Of the agreement or?
Yeah,
Okay.
of theirs, of the description. It's regarding the description. Actually, there's one typo you might want to get there on Beardsley. It's misspelled in that.
Are you looking at the MBE WBE report?
Yes. I'm looking at, I ran these all together. I'm looking at the development agreement itself.
Okay. Does it look like this?
No, I'm back here in the development agreement.
Okay, that's where I am too.
Okay.
We're missing each other. I'm at 36 of 37.
I'm sorry.
Oh.
I said 36. It's page 3 of 37.
Oh, okay. We're with you. We're
All
with
right.
you.
In C up there's just a typo on Beardsley that I noticed. I was really looking at the section below that on affordability. And
Thank you.
on the affordability, I know that's always tough when we're talking median price for our metro area, et cetera. But this has the maximum purchase price not to exceed $190,000, which it's saying is 95% of the median purchase price for the metro area. And I'm just wondering where that number came from.
Yeah, well, HUD actually used to publish that number every year. They don't anymore. Something changed, and this is going far back. I don't know if you remember, Kelly. Okay. Something changed statutorily, and they could no longer use the limit that they were publishing every year because it was actually borrowing a limit that was published by a different program. It might have been tied to FHA. I can't remember. But this is actually new construction purchase price limit, and I believe it's based off of 2012 numbers. But
And
I can pull
that
that
is
up.
supposed to be for this metropolitan area?
Yeah, I know. It's very high. But I will tell you that
Yeah.
it's also based on the fact that we kind of borrow from Chicago in this sense because we're considered a high cost area because we're part of the Chicago field office. So really it's Chicago's numbers that are impacting the way that we're allowed to set our maximum purchase price
Oh, okay.
for new construction. So they call them non-elevator type units or whatever. I could definitely pull up the numbers for you, but we're actually allowed to, they publish the number and we're allowed to multiply that number by 210%. So, but that's because HUD has designated all of the Chicago-based consortia as high-cost percentage areas. So yeah, that is a very valid question. And none
So-
of our developments ever even come close
Right.
to
So
something like
since
that.
we're kind of starting with call it a nonsense number, what is the estimated purchase price of these homes going to be? Do you know?
Well, so Habitat Homes usually appraise at about 100,000.
Right.
I can tell you that the mortgages, I believe they sell them for 80, 85. The mortgages are usually around 60, 65.
So these will still be in that same range,
Yeah,
which is
so it's-
only slightly high for those areas where they're being built. Yeah, which is
Yeah.
a lot better. Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
so they do take that into account, and they're able to get other grants for down payment from some of the other programs. I know Hickory Point Bank, I think sometimes.
Yeah, I mean,
will
I was
participate.
assuming that they were going to be their normal houses, but this doesn't actually say that anywhere in
Yeah,
here.
yeah,
So,
okay.
okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Do you want to go ahead and talk about the second section of this one, Jen? Or just any more, or entertain questions about that one?
Second section, you mean the agreement, or?
Yeah.
Oh, or you mean, so yeah, I guess I discussed both at the same time,
Yeah.
the certification and the agreement.
Yeah. So are there any other questions about that, I guess is what I'm saying, or just either one of them, I guess. So if we look at, on your agenda, if you look at 1 and 2 under home, we can look at 1 and 2 together and then decide whether we want to forward both both of those together with recommendation for approval, change, or not approval. Does someone want to make a motion?
I will say that it probably makes sense to put them together because separate, they're both void,
Okay.
I suppose, yeah.
All right.
I would move that we forward the resolutions certifying Community Housing Development Organization for Urbana Home Consortium and a resolution approving and authorizing the execution of an Urbana Home Consortium Community Housing Development Organization agreement to City Council with a recommendation to approve it.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? If none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. So the motion passes. Thank you. And then the last item under new business is a resolution approving additional modifications to the City of Urbana Home Consortium 2013-2014 Annual Action Plan. So do you want to lead us through the changes there, Jen?
Sure, of course. So this proposed amendment is basically an amendment to an amendment, which I apologize. I hate those. They're awful. But we couldn't avoid it with this one. CDC and Council had originally approved financing for the demolition and new construction of 301 East Thompson Street, and that was supposed to be taken on by Habitat. But because of those environmental hiccups I was talking about earlier, where there was a whole lot more documentation we needed to be doing, we knew we weren't going to meet the deadline in terms of timeliness for the home program. And so we had to scrap that project altogether in order to make our commitments and everything. So we are instead proposing, so it's supposed to be $40,000 for the demo, $40,000 for the new construction subsidy. That $80,000 is basically uncommitted, and it's contributing to our commitment shortfall. And so staff is proposing to allocate those funds instead to augment the Champaign County Regional Planning Commission's tenant-based rental assistance program. And this is actually a program that meets the needs of, or the housing needs of families who are at 30% or below of the median family income, which was the targeted population that Robin was speaking to in the public hearing we just had. So I'm definitely in favor of it because it's the only activity we can seem to come up with that will really meet those needs and immediate needs. And they have a really great self-sufficiency component that goes along with it. It actually is kind of, I don't know if it's great to say it this way, but it's an easy burden. It's a light burden as far as environmental components and doing all of that legwork. And it's an immediate commitment. So it's about as good as it gets in terms of making commitments. But it's also a program that I think really is running really well. So yeah, I guess that's pretty much it. It's a modification to previous modifications. If there are any questions, let me know.
So our choices are to recommend that this go forward as is or with modifications, or not recommend approval. Do I have a motion?
I move that we recommend the approval of the resolution approving additional modifications to the City of Urbana and Urbana Home Consortium fiscal year 2013-14 annual action plan.
Thank you, Jerry. Is there a second?
I second it.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Call for a vote. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. So that moves forward. And then the last item on our agenda is the CDBG, Public Service Funding Priorities. So, Kelly, do you want to
Yes.
walk us through that one?
Yes. Basically, we're coming to you with, as your advisory capacity, to develop the priorities for our Community Development Block Grant portion of the Consolidated Social Service Funding Pool, which began, applications were made available, I believe it was March 9th, and they'll be due April 9th. As you can see, the background, this Consolidated Social Service Funding Pool was established in 1996. We're estimating $5,000 in CDBG funding, same as that we did in 14-15, and it's anticipated that the total pool of funds available will be less than what it was last year, of $300,000. And let's see. So if you look on the second page, the designations for priorities were for youth and seniors, homelessness, and special needs populations. So in order to address these priorities, the agencies that fit into those were Community Elements, Roundhouse Youth Shelter for youth and homelessness, and Courage Connection Domestic Violence Services for the special needs population. So you can determine the priorities for the public services funding, and here's the list. And as you can see, though, the affordable housing, lead-based paint, infrastructure, and public housing are also addressed under other funded programs. So staff is recommending that the same priorities of youth and seniors, homelessness, and special needs populations be chosen because they provide for a larger range of funding opportunities.
Kelly, is that what we had last year? I'm trying to see what we chose last year.
Yes.
Okay.
For 14-15, yes. This will be for 15-16. I think the last several years have been pretty much these same priorities, because we get a large pool of applicants, and then we can look and see which agencies fit under these priorities.
So when you list the options, you have seniors and youth, and then when you list the recommendations, you say youth and seniors. Is that significant, or is that just the same? Okay.
It's the same thing, yeah.
All right.
So, Kelly, while there's a limited, amount of dollars that's in this, when it says youth and seniors, but then the agency funded is the youth shelter, so are there other things, other sources of money being directed towards seniors, or is that not as significant of a problem in our community from your perspective?
There are other fundings. Our small portion fits with Cunningham Township, and for 14-15 they put in about $100,000, and then the remainder was city general fund. So with our portion, we fund only a few, and it gets coupled with city funds. So there are other agencies that they get funded that are for seniors. It just happened to be that I think we also look at agencies who have been have funding from they have an understanding of federal funding and stuff like that because of all the regulations. So. Mm-hmm.
Has the need, I have a question, has the need varied? I guess the percentage of need, has it varied in the last year between the three, I guess? Has there been a rise in one and a decrease in another?
Oh, as far as youth, seniors, homelessness,
Right.
and special needs
Right.
populations? I think that they probably are all pretty high priority.
Stayed relatively consistent.
I would say they're relatively consistent.
Can I ask what organizations have typically applied for this in the past? How
Well,
many applicants did you receive?
We typically have about 35 35 to 40 agencies submitting a total of about 55 to 60 applications. And it's, council makes the decision on who gets funded for how much. They don't differentiate the different pots, it's all together. And then, once council makes the decision, then our office with Cunningham Township determines what agencies will get, like, what pot of money, so.
So what you're asking us to do this evening is to give you priorities from this list in order that you can work with for the coming year. And your recommendation is to stay with the priorities we identified last year. That worked well.
Yes.
Gave you a lot of flexibility in making the most effective use of the funding that was available and
Yes.
considering what else was available to those populations. Okay.
Mhm.
Are there any more questions or discussion about the priorities? Someone want to make a motion with the list?
I would move that we choose the funding priorities of youth and seniors, homelessness, and special needs populations for these funds.
Thank you. Is there a second? There's a second. Any further discussion on the list as presented in the motion? Let's call a vote to submit the list as youth, seniors, homelessness, and special needs populations. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Thank you. So, that, unless there's items for the study session.
No, there's not.
No, okay. And as I recall, study session is one of the agenda items that is now required on every agenda per our bylaws.
Yes.
So
Mhm.
if we have something that we want to discuss or bring up at that point, this is the time to do it, otherwise.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So if there are no further items for discussion, then the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.